Good evening. This is Pamela, and you're listening to Watchmen on the Pod. We're going to pick back up in our book reading Codeword, Barbelon, Danger in the Vatican, 666, The Sons of Laloya and Their Plans for World Domination. This is Book 1, the author P. D. Stuart, Chapter 13. Excuse me. Crack Troops, the Training of a Jesuit. Give me the child until he is 7, and I will give you the man. Ignatius Loyola created an army to conquer the world, secured in the knowledge, said Wiley, that by making each member, before enrolling himself, pass through an ordeal that should sift and try and harden him, he would serve the order to his utmost. Loyola himself was as a soldier in the Spanish army, and he instilled the same discipline and hardness in his sons. As every army or military organization must have weapons and an arsenal, so too the army of Loyola. And the Jesuit general is the Aladdin that opens and shuts the box that holds the Jesuit genie, and he has apprentices who go wherever he may send them. Doubt it not. It has been said that the armies of Alexander were known for their courage and discipline, the men of Hannibal and the soldiers of Napoleon for their special preparations that gave them success on the battlefield. But the drilling and the discipline of all these combined cannot, in point of stern, rigid, and protracted severity, for a moment be compared to the drilling and discipline which fitted and molded men for becoming full members of the militant institute of the Jesuits. They are the Pope's light cavalry, the sharpest weapon in the papal drawer, a corpus of priests living under martial law and discipline. The individual Jesuit, although he must first have trained as a priest, need not remain in active clerical duties. Indeed, many are sent out into the field to train and work as lawyers, doctors, teachers, journalists, and any other vocation that is deemed to be useful to the aims of the order. But no one can be enrolled in the Society of Jesus until he has undergone a severe and long-continued course of training. Every Jesuit is a chosen man. In addition, certain candidates are picked from the cream of the crop to ascend to the highest ranks, according to their ability in promoting the designs and aims of the order. Said Philip Miller, never before in the course of the world's history had such a society appeared. The old Roman Senate itself did not lay schemes for world domination with greater certainty of success. To this observation of Philip Miller must be appended the explanatory statement of General Monthalen, who served with Napoleon. The Jesuits are a military organization, not a religious order. The aim of this organization is power in its most despotic exercise, absolute power, universal power, power to control the world. In case you think we overstate the case concerning the Jesuits, Wiley wrote, "An army to conquer the world Loyola was forming. The general is the society. He could enkindle them with fascination. No, that's not fascination. Fanaticism, and so pervert and indurate their souls by evil maxims and long rigorous training that they should be insensible to shame and pain and would welcome suffering and death. Sure, what is wrong with my eyes today? Forgive me, guys. Such were the weapons of the men he sent forth to battle. Not only are they made to endure to a severe physical discipline, but as Fulop Miller writes, to a far greater extent than any other religious brotherhood. The Society of Jesus has endeavored ever since its foundation to come to terms with all expressions of the human mind, with theology as well as with natural science, with philosophy, art, politics, economics, constitutional law, and jurisprudence. But perfection in Jesuitism cannot be reached otherwise than by the loss of manhood. Will, judgment, conscience, liberty, all the Jesuits lays down at the feet of his general. It is a tremendous sacrifice, but to him, the general is God. In the words of one of the Society's eminent superior generals of the 17th century, the members of the Society are dispersed in every corner of the world, having the same aim, same conduct, same vow. And at the least sign, one man, the general, turns and returns the entire Society. It is said that it is not possible for any who have been initiated into the higher degrees of Jesuitism to think of retiring from the order, since the congregation, through their excellent management of its machinery, know how to procure the immediate death of any such initiated member who may wish to leave their ranks. These bipolar men are so accustomed to dissembling and equivocation that even their conduct towards each other is one continuous act of deceit and spying. They swear to reveal to their superior what they have done, thought, read, learnt, or discovered, and to observe and watch all that comes under their notice. And that was paragraph 204 of the Regulae. Yet in all of this they are taught to be careful always to speak in the character of their pious devotees, holy men. What a brood of pious frauds! Let us now glance at the several grades of this great army of Loyola and the preparatory discipline required in the case of each. The Jesuits' Ratio Studiorum plan of studies. Said Wiley, they would have to do the errands of Rome in all climates and under all outward conditions. They would be required to serve her in hunger and thirst, in cold and nakedness, amid the ice of the pole and under the burning sun of the tropics. The order must be able to send forth men for all departments of life, for the plow, for the school, for the bench of justice, for the army, and for the church. They must acquire a knowledge of all trades. They must study sciences and arts. They must speak all languages. That is, the whole order must have this linguistic ability. Even fencing and armed combat was once part of the Jesuit training, as seen in the case of Francis de Sales, Saint, who had a private trainer and wore a sword until the day he put on his clerical robe. We are told that it was not just a decorative sword. He learnt to fight in real earnest, and when occasion warranted, as happened one night in a melee in Padua, he was easily able to disarm his adversaries. We now turn to the first section of the Constitutions of Loyola, the Examen General, that prefaces the Constitution and deals with the admission of candidates to the order. It lists 6 classes or degrees of the Jesuit order. 1. The novices. 2. The lay brothers or temporal coadjutors. 3. The scholastics or scholars. 4. The spiritual coadjutor. 5. The professed or professe of 3 vows. And 6. The professed of 5 vows. These special vows of fealty to the Pope allows Catholicism's largest and most dreaded order to pursue a course throughout the world that is largely independent of control of local bishops and parishes. Besides, writes Gressinger, this form of government is not regulated according to the rules of the Catholic Church, but is carried on according to certain secret principles known only to the chiefs. The Jesuits' degrees and their requirements. The discipline required of the student Jesuit is of a very severe kind. He must first undergo a period of confession of his sins and participate in a series of mystical or occultic meditations and practices called the spiritual exercises. He starts his training at the lowest degree, the novice or the novitiates. These are the first in order of admission and the last in dignity. The novice, on first entering, has all his acts, habits, and personal qualities registered. Presenting himself for admission into the order, the novitiate is subjected to a strict scrutiny into his talents, his disposition, his family, and his former life. If it is determined that he is not likely to be of service to the society, he is at once dismissed. If his fitness appears probable, he is received into the house of primary probation. A compend or compendium of the order is then presented to the novitiate for his consideration. But the full body of laws and regulations of the order is deliberately withheld from him. If he possesses property, he is told that he must give it to the poor, that is, into the hands and care of society. His tact and address, his sound judgment and business talent, his health and bodily vigor are all closely watched and noted. Above all, his obedience is subjected to severe experiment. If he acquits himself on the trial to the satisfaction of his examiners, he receives the sacrament and is advanced to the house of second probation. Next, he must fill a course of service in learning humility by helping the poor and ministering at the beds of the sick, even in begging his bread from door to door. Thus he learns to live on the coarsest fare and to sleep on the hardest couch. His course of service ended, he is invited to show his powers of operating on others by communicating instructions to boys in Christian doctrine, by hearing confessions, and by preaching in public. This course is to last 2 years, unless the superior should see fit to shorten it on the ground of greater zeal or superior talent. If at the end of his period of probation the spiritual exercises have produced the desired effect, the student is invited to become a novitiate, novice Jesuit. It is necessary at this point to say a few words more about the spiritual exercises of the Jesuits. No one can be enrolled in the Society of Jesus till he has undergone a severe and long-continued course of training. These include the mystical exercises found in the book The Spiritual Exercises, written by Loyola. One Calvinistic preacher said of these exercises, "The Jesuits lead many astray to strange practices which they call spiritual exercises. Not only Jesuits, but numerous secular clergy, princes of the church, scholars, and laymen in the most various positions performed the exercises." The spiritual exercises of Loyola, referred to earlier in chapter 11 and written between 1522 and 1524, is a system of occult or mystic meditations, prayers, and mental exercises. It is carried out over a period of 28 to 30 days. The Jesuits say that the purpose of the spiritual exercises is to help the Jesuit find and listen to the inner man, the conscience. This is all well and good, except that what he is seeking has long abandoned him. For the very training, initiation, and oath undertaken by the Jesuit is designed to deaden and still the conscience. Originality and independence of mind, the power of reflecting and of forming correct judgments were not merely neglected, they are suppressed in the Jesuit system. Newman says that a crucial stage in the training of the Jesuit, he is carefully excluded from all communication with his relatives and former friends. Every earthly tie is broken. He is to have no will of his own as to have his future course, but is to put himself into the hands of the director as the interpreter of heaven toward him. He is to be as a corpse or as a staff. Absolute obedience is the thing most insisted upon. His conscience must not assert itself in opposition to the will of his superior. Absolute destruction of individual will and conscience is aimed at and to a great extent accomplished. Having gone through that ordeal, the candidate must next seek admission into the order. He does so, says Wiley, by presenting himself before the superior with certificates from those under whose eye he has fulfilled the 6 trials, as to the manner in which he has acquitted himself. If the testimonial should prove satisfactory to the superior, the novitate is enrolled, not as yet in the company of the Jesuits, but among the indifferents. He is presumed to have no choice as regards the place he is to occupy in the august corps he aspires to enter. He leaves that entirely to the decision of the superior. He is equally ready to stand at the head or at the foot of the body, to discharge the most menial or the most dignified service, to play his part in the saloons of the great, encompassed by luxury and splendor, or to discharge his mission in the hovels of the poor, in the midst of misery and filth, to remain at home or to go to the ends of the earth. To have a preference, though unexpressed, is to fall into deadly sin. Obedience is not only the letter of his vow, it is the lesson that his training has written on his heart. The approved initiate or novitate may now take the 3 simple vows: poverty, chastity, and obedience. These vows he must renew twice every year. The Jesuits, says Wiley, have their own colleges, which are amply funded by wealthy devotees, and it is to one of these that the novitate is sent to receive instruction in the higher mysteries of the society. At these colleges, the Jesuits' intellectual powers are more severely tested and trained, and according to the genius and subtlety he may display, and his progress in his studies, tact, great energy, and absolute obedience are also required. If he demonstrates these qualities, the novitate is accepted as a Jesuit scholar. The qualities to be desired and commended in the scholars, say the constitutions, are acuteness of talent, brilliancy of example, and soundness of body. Newman gives additional details. The director studies with the greatest care the condition of the novice from day to day. He is allowed to read nothing but a little devotional matter. He may not converse with other novices. His obedience is fully tested by the requirements of the most disagreeable and arduous services. The novitate usually lasts about 2 years, and if the novice is found to possess great energy and tact, the absolute obedience, he is accepted as a scholar. He now undergoes a protracted course of training in the various branches of secular and theological learning. The scholars were a body of picked men, thoroughly obedient to their superiors and devoted to their work. The utmost attention was paid to the wholesome nourishment and physical culture, for the leaders realized from the beginning that to accomplish their purposes a sound and hearty physique was just as important as a well-trained and well-stored mind. If at the end of the course of the study the scholar was regarded as highly promising, he was made a coadjutor. We can hardly conceive of anything calculated for securing a complete mastery over a susceptible youth. Thus, it is only after having finished his 2nd course, first as a simple scholar and then as an approved scholar, and if at the end of his course of study as a scholar he is regarded as highly promising, is the Jesuit scholar allowed to pass into the 3rd class, the coadjutor. This latter class is divided into 2 further chapters, temporal and spiritual. Only the spiritual coadjutors are admitted into holy orders as priests. The temporal go out into the various trades, vocations, and professions to fulfill their assigned roles in the grand design. And note, reader, that some, says Wiley, are retained to minister in the lowest offices. They become college cooks, porters, or purveyors. For the greater glory of God, it is held expedient that these should be content to serve the society in the careful office of a Martha, a servant. On the other hand, the spiritual coadjutors are sent on the most difficult or important assignments, either as priests to royalty, leaders and the affluent, or as teachers in the best schools and universities and institutions of public policy. As priests, the coadjutors would seek to reach and mold the youth, the wealthy, and the leaders. The work of the spiritual coadjutor is therefore of great importance, and for that reason, says Wiley, he is required to be a priest of adequate learning, that he may assist the society, the Jesuit order, in hearing confessions and giving instructions in Catholic doctrine. In short, the coadjutors are top-flight agents selected for the most difficult assignments. The professe. It is from among the spiritual coadjutors that directors of colleges are usually selected by the general, but it is a further privilege of theirs if they are called to assemble in congregations to deliberate with members of a class called the professe in matters of the highest importance. But no vote is granted them, coadjutors, in the election of a general. That's in their constitutions. I believe that says, I think it says PARS dot. I don't know what that is. 8, chapter 3A. I think that's how that's worded. According to the Jesuit constitutions, paragraph 658, the professed is not to be regarded as a crowd, but as an elite race. The professe formed the fourth and highest grade of the Jesuit order. They alone are initiated into all of the secrets of the order. They alone know its deepest secrets, and they alone wield its highest powers. The professe members constitute the society par excellence. The professed of 4 vows constitute the veritable company of Jesus, the kernel of the organization. They were never numerous. At Laloya's death, hold on 1 minute. I'm trying to cover my shoulders. I'm a little chilled. Okay. The professed of 4 vows constitute the veritable company of Jesus, the kernel of the organization. They were never numerous. At Laloya's death, they numbered 35 out of 1,000, and it has been calculated that their average proportion to the whole body is about 2 to 100. About 2 to 100. Thus, the spiritual coadjutor cannot of himself progress to the rank of professe. Only if considered a candidate for the 4th and highest grade is he admitted to the oblation of this vow, which are similar in form and substance to those he had already taken, with this exception, that they assign to the Jesuit general the place of God. I promise, so runs the oath, to the omnipotent God in the presence of his Virgin Mother and of all the heavenly hierarchy, and to thee, Father General of the Society, holding the place of God. With this oath sworn on its threshold, the selected coadjutor enters the inner circle of the society and is enrolled among the professed. The 4th vow, the professe, is also one of his special allegiance to the Pope, promising to go in obedience to him whensoever and whithersoever he may order. Mosheim writes, what is still more remarkable, the secrets of the society are not revealed to all of the professed members. It is only a small number of this class whom old age has enriched with thorough experience, and whom long trial has declared to be worthy of such an important trust, that are instructed in the mysteries of the order. Their true Kabbalah, secret doctrine, they never communicate to any but men who have been well tested and proved by every species of trial. Thus, a Jesuit may, but only after having passed with approbation the many stringent tests and training to which he is subjected over several years, in order to perfect his submission and obedience. Then, at long last, says Wiley, having duly deposited in the exchequer of the society whatever property he may happen to possess, he is allowed in as a bona fide member of the Society of Jesus. We have outlined at length the long and severe discipline through which every member of the society must undergo before being admitted into the select class that constitutes the elite of the Society of Jesus. But that is not all. Beyond the professe, there are 2 other known grades, making 6 in total, of which there is no need to trace further. However, the question has long been hotly debated whether, in addition to these 6 avowed grades, there be not a 7th, secretly affiliated to the society, i.e., the Society of Jesus, and acting as its unsuspected emissaries in the various lay positions. This class is styled in France Jesuits of the short robe, and some evidence in support of its actual existence was alleged during the lawsuits against the company under Louis XV. However, the Jesuits themselves deny the existence of any such secret body, and will adduce evidence that they say disprove the existence of such class. But the reader ought not to place too much reliance on that denial, as there are clauses in the Jesuit constitutions which make the creation of such a class possible, if thought expedient. One such clause gives the general the power to receive candidates secretly and to conceal their admission. Another is an even more surprising clause, providing for the admission of candidates to the company of persons who are not themselves members of it. Indeed, Niccolini asserts that there is a secret class known only to the general and a few faithful Jesuits, which perhaps more than any other contributed to the dreaded and mysterious power of the order. In any event, whether or not such a 7th Jesuit degree exists, what cannot be disputed is the fact that on acceptance into the order, all Jesuits are released from every obligation, tie, or human authority, save that of the constitutions, which are to take the place of God himself. One famous Jesuit said of the constitutions, and so they all say, that it was a revelation from God, an inspiration of the Holy Spirit. It is now time to look closely at one of the major assignments of the Jesuits in the world today, the field of education. For it is said that the Jesuits' main purpose in American higher education is to lure promising young men into their colleges, inducing them to complete their formal education at the hands of the Jesuit fathers in their prestigious colleges and universities, and then thoroughly train and indoctrinate them in their moral and political maxims. Bill Clinton was one of them. To do their biddings in positions of power and influence. I believe it was George Bush and John Kerry, and there's a list that goes on and on and on. To better secure this objective, the Jesuits have aspired not only to set up their own institutions of higher learning, but to control, direct, or otherwise gain influence in many of the leading universities across the world. And we shall see in the next chapter that if an able and influential college were needed in an important city, they, the Jesuits, could call one into being in a week and furnish it with the teachers exactly fitted for the place. As the Jesuit Adam Weishaupt wrote of one of university in Europe, all the professors are members of the Illuminati, so will all the pupils become disciples. Illuminism. So there you have it. That was chapter 13. All right, brothers and sisters, it is late. I think I am going to get to bed. I say it's late. It's 9:38. It's late for this old woman. So anyway, keep your eyes on Jesus, brothers and sisters. Your nose in the book, which is the Word of God. And embed the Word of God upon the tablets of our hearts, so you and I will not sin against God or be deceived. I love you guys.